Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Howard Jones, and I am a Senior Learning Consultant for Hitachi Solutions, and I'm hosting this session with my colleague, Jason.
Hi, Jason Almeida. I'm a Solution Architect at Hitachi Solution and a AI and Copilot advocate within the organization.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. Today, we are going to explore how to make Copilot work for you, and we're going to focus on everyday efficiency tips for yourself and your colleagues in the public sector. So to support the reason why we are here today, we have a few stats on screen for you to look into. There have been some pilots and trials done in organizations across the public sector and also private as well, where positive stats like these have come out. So trials have measured that increases of up to 30% in colleagues' productivity, which allows them to focus on people, not the paperwork. There was a trial last year where 70% of people using Copilot were said to be more productive. 64 said it helped them spend less time on mundane tasks. And just to throw an amount of time out there of how many minutes a day may save you, there was a trial that found that users saved an average of 26 minutes per day. So we're just going to run through the agenda today. So what we're going to run through in this quick session is to provide you with some practical insights, some takeaway hints and tips that you can use straight away after this webinar, if of course you have Copilot available. And just to do things a bit differently, we're going to show you the good stuff first. So I'll be passing over to my colleague Jason in a moment to show you what Copilot looks like in real time. And then once Jason shows you a few demos, I will recap about what Copilot is, where you can find Copilot in your devices. And that's going to be tailed with a couple more demos from Jason as well. And he will also talk to you about how secure Copilot is and also make you aware that Copilot learning is coming your way and how to book onto it. So that will be passed back to me. So we're going to run through a question and answer session. I will ask some questions to Jason, some of the questions that were posed before this webinar took place. So we're going to act on a few of those questions that were put forward at the very tail end of this video. So the next bit I'm going to run through is the demo from Jason. So I'm just going to pass the mic over to Jason.
Thank you, Howard. So let's start by looking at what does Copilot look like in real time. Now, you would have seen the Copilot icon in a lot of different places. We're going to start with one of the apps, and we'll go through quite a few apps through the various demos I'm going to show you today. So what you have on your screen here is the M365 Copilot. It is an app for Windows that brings together all of your organizational data. The key here is you can see that low check mark in the upper left corner that shows that it's secure within your organization, which means that your data is protected. You also have the work and web toggle. This one's really important to decide whether or not you use your work context and your work data. Or you stick to web context and web data. There's the chat interface in the middle, and at the bottom, some helpful, useful starter prompts for you to get started with your day. Now, the first thing we're going to do is ask, what can you do? We'll follow the instructions that we see on the screen there. But once you click in, you can see that there are a bunch of options that come up. And the reason why is because when you ask a question, you can bring in context across people, files, meetings, and emails, or bring multiple components in to ask a question. So you can see there, I've posted my question, and Copilot gives you a very straightforward response. Now, the next step is we want to add a little bit more context to this situation. So let me add a simple qualifier here to say, what can you do to help me in my role? And what you can also see is I've added a little bit of an additional qualifier to say this for a public webinar, please redact customer information. And these messages I'm sending here are effectively called prompts. It's how you guide the Copilot and LLMs to provide the answers that you want. Now, you can see that the information has been produced almost instantly within a matter of seconds, and it also provides me with useful content such as links to emails, external websites as well, for me to go and look for more information. So make sure that it's citing its sources. And you can see at the bottom, there are automatically generated helpful next prompts that you can also ask. So these are generated based on the question that you asked for. Now let's move over to Copilot in Outlook. Now in this case, it's a similar set of features, but more geared towards email management. And you can see the button in the top right corner. And when I click it, I have access to the key capabilities that it has. Moving down to the bottom, I've got my chat bar, and there's also a button that shows up some of the prompts and the various categories that I can prompt within the context of Outlook. So typical email management activities. Now, you can see there, I've also selected to look at some ask question examples. Let's start with a simple activity of setting my out of office. Now, I'm going away on holiday in a week's time. So I'd like to put out my out of office, but instead of me remembering to do so while I'm about to board the plane, I can ask Copilot to do this. And it takes the context of my request, creates an out of office automatic reply with the dates preset. And all I need to do is press the save button, and my out of office is now set within a matter of clicks. No hassle required. So we've done this basic activity. Now let's move on to the next step within what you might use Outlook typically for, which is managing your emails and your mailbox. We all know that prioritizing and managing emails is tricky, and Copilot has a feature here to help you accelerate your day-to-day productivity. This is achieved by clicking on the Copilot button and selecting the prioritize option. What this does, instead of creating previously static rules in terms of how you manage email, you describe what you would like to be prioritized. And you can see I've set out some examples about prioritize emails that mention me, or in this example, prioritize emails about a lunch and learn initiative. So you can think about an internal project that you want to prioritize. There's also the high and low priority. So you can down prioritize emails that are not as important. And within a couple of clicks, I've set some prioritization, and going forward, any email that comes in will be tagged with that little blue icon, which tells me that Copilot has reviewed this email, created a little summary statement, and an AI generated header as well. Now, in my day-to-day workflow now, I look at that little summary on the email along with the context when I have to go into the email, because Copilot is there to save time and make me more productive. So you can imagine in a situation where you've got a long running email thread, you need to quickly get up to speed. Copilot can give you that really quick summary around who said what, or ask additional questions as well. Now, let's move a step further and say, I've come back from holiday. I've got a whole bunch of emails that I've got to catch up on. Let me start by putting a prompt to say, summarize the emails where I was mentioned. Once again, I'm putting a prompt to ask it to limit the information for the purposes of this webinar. And you can see within a matter of seconds, Copilot is going through my emails, reviewing them, creating a bold statement around who this email is from, what I was mentioned about, and what the action for me is as well. And it gives me a very neat summarized list of items. And you can see I've hovered over all of the citations as well. So if I wanted to go read that email, all I need to do is click the citation, and it takes me to that email record without me having to navigate away from this one screen that I have open here. So let's now move on to drafting emails, another action that typically can sort of elicit, a little bit of fear for people who don't like writing emails. You can see there is a button there to say draft with Copilot. Instead of me having a blank page syndrome, I press the button and it opens up a little prompt that I can click and start describing what's the email that I would like to summarize. I've pasted in a simple prompt here to say thank you to the attendees for attending this session. Hope we found this tips and tricks useful as well. And I can press the go button for it to generate an email. Now, the key here is that Copilot is there to help me with my response, to accelerate my workflow and prevent me from having to stare at a blank page. I can choose to keep it, adjust the tone or length, make it shorter, longer, or if I wanted to and felt a bit whimsical, I can say, let's rewrite it like a poem to give everybody a laugh when they're reading the summarization email. And Copilot can take the content and revise it as needed. Now, the key here is that Copilot is there to help you with your day-to-day activity. So I can choose to keep that into the email. Now, moving a step along, let's say you've written an important email that you need to send over to your heads to convince them to say that, you know, Copilot is important for the organization, given some of the stats that we've seen. Now, I've pasted an email that I've pre-written. And once again, I can see the Copilot button there where I can say, coach me to make this email better. So I can press that single button and it will review the email and suggest useful improvements. Now, the key here is that it suggests things like tones, sentiment, clarity, but I can make requests to say who the audience is and how that might tailor the content that I'm delivering. A C-suite might want to see less detail, metrics, and summarization, whereas someone in an operational role might want specifics as to how this might work in an organization, and Copilot gives you that flexibility. I can keep the copies and then bring them together, which is typically my personal workflow. Is I bring multiple things together until it really feels like me in terms of how emails are created. I'm going to hand over to Howard to now just give you a little run through of what I've just seen and talk about what's in Copilot, or what is Copilot.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So now we have seen a little taste of what Copilot can do. We're going to dive straight into kind of the explanation of as to what Copilot is. So if we go into the next slide, it says here, well, actually imagine having a super smart sidekick that is kind of ready to help you work smarter, faster, and more efficiently. And that is Copilot in a nutshell. It's an AI powered tool. You are the pilot. Obviously, it is Copilot and you are in control, and the AI works alongside you, and it seamlessly integrates into your favorite Microsoft tools like Word, Excel, Outlook, Teams, and more. So we've already seen kind of what it can do in Outlook and also in its standalone web applications, but it's standalone desktop app, but essentially it will offer real-time support, some insightful tips, and amazing automation to make your life, your work life, a lot easier. So some of the key features and benefits include drafting and editing documents. It can summarize complex pieces of information, analyze data a lot quicker than we can, and it can automate routine tasks to help you draft professional responses like you saw in the demo. It can schedule and manage meetings, summarize and prioritize emails. It can do quite a lot. So as Jason showed earlier, if you're away from leave, you can schedule it to set your out of office. You can also have a look at the long emails that you may receive and just quickly summarize. So Copilot can condense and highlight all the key points, which will help you grasp what matters most. So as you've seen already, it can help you save time, it improves clarity, and also cuts down on some of the admin work. So I suppose the next question is, where do you find Copilot? So we've seen obviously it in action. So just to let you know that you can see it in a couple of places, but it does depend on your license that you have. So depending on the organization has set devices, there's two kind of types. There's a free version and there is one as a paid version or pro version. So the pro version contains a lot of information, or a lot of features. For example, you can find it in Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and OneNote, and some more as well. But it offers greater data protection, as well as if there is a upgrade in the AI model behind the scenes, it will update that automatically for you on the Pro version as well. So the most interesting thing for you to know is obviously how to recognize what version you have. And you can see what version you have as shown in the demo when you see that work and web toggle at the top of the screen. So if you open Copilot in the desktop version, you will see an option of work and web if you have the pro version. The work tab will focus on kind of internal tasks where it can create documents, it can analyze information, sort out, it can work on task management as well. The website is really focused on a kind of external information gathering. So depending on what version you have, if you have the free version, you will not see the work and web toggle, but if you have the pro version, you will, and you will have all the features that that come along with that as well. So you will find that Copilot has a few kind of integrations. Firstly, you can download the desktop application. If you simply search for M365 Copilot in your search bar on your device, it should come up, which will enable you to activate it and then save it to your taskbar if needed. Some of the features we've mentioned already. There is also a Microsoft Edge web browser feature, which is alongside you. We will help you and feed directly into your browsing experience. That is on the top right of the screen, and you will see that option in the actual Microsoft web browser. And then, as we've discussed already, you can actually find it alongside quite a lot of your Microsoft Office apps, Word, Outlook, PowerPoint, Teams, to name a few. And this will seemingly kind of integrate into your experience of using that and offer many, many amazing features. So as you can see, we've seen on Outlook already, but in the top right of the screen, you will find that there is a Copilot icon for you to interact with. This will bring up a pane or a series of suggested kind of activities you can do if you click on the arrow. But essentially, this is where you start your interaction with Outlook. Now, similarly, it is in in Teams. You can see also on the top of your taskbar when you go into meetings. It is also available in the Teams app as well on the top of the chat menu, and also as one of the apps on the side as well, which you can interact with. So there's quite a lot of ways that you can interact with it through Teams. I'm stepping on the toes of a demo that Jason's going to show you in a moment, so I'm going to pass over to Jason to talk more about it.
Thanks, Howard. So yeah, on the topic of Teams, we're going to look at Teams Copilot and look at the couple of options it has. We're going to start with meetings. So it's one of the two main things you use Teams for, meetings and chat. Now on Teams, you've got access to the Copilot button when you're in a call. So this is a call that I set up with myself earlier. And when you turn this on, it asks for the ability to turn on transcription. The transcription is what allows Copilot to do all of the AI summarization for you. You can also do it for recordings as well. But either way, you need to initiate the meeting and needs to be in your organization. Once it starts, you get this Copilot panel on the side, and it's effectively like being a live note taker. And that was something somebody asked for, so you don't need to manually scribe notes anymore. It can do it for you. It's got some sort of pre-crafted prompts as well. So imagine you attend a meeting slightly late and you need to catch up on what's been discussed so far. You've got the recap meeting so far button. So provided it's been transcribed, it just gives you a quick summary of what's been discussed, any key mentions, action items, questions, etc. So this provides you as a scribe, even though you're not in the meeting, and you can see it gives you a really quick response along with citations. Now, taking this a step further, Copilot in Teams also becomes a collaborator in a meeting as well to help you ask better questions, where you can say, suggest follow-up questions, and it gives you some recommendations. Now, fast forwarding over into the post meeting, we've got a calendar invite that I've got on my screen here. This was a meeting that we had 4 months ago to plan this very webinar. And when I went into it, I Copilot transcripted the entire meeting, and you've got a view recap button there to give you the highlights. Now, when you click on it, it shows you the AI summary and all of the notes that have been taken. So once again, imagine having to manually scribe this. It's doing it all for you in a matter of minutes. And it gives you a breakdown of the key topics. And then going a step further, you can click on one of these if there are some bullet points discussed to expand any of the more detailed conversations that were mentioned for this particular topic. Now, once again, you can imagine the activity this accelerates in terms of planning for, in this case, a webinar. We also have follow-up tasks, and it gives people owners as well, depending on the attendees in the meeting. And now, once again, if you had to do this manually, you typically spend, half an hour at least doing all of this activity post-meeting. About 5 to 10 seconds after your meeting, this summary is ready to go. And what you can do after this is use the Copilot button in the upper right corner to start asking very specific questions. So this is obviously creating simple notes, but what you can do is also ask very specific questions around creating things that you want. And just on the screen here, I've also got mentioned. So if you're mentioned in the meeting, you can also get a quick summary of that. Now, I've expanded the Copilot panel. And what I did was I asked very specifically to generate a webinar-esque content structure. So you can see my prompt is about creating a webinar to deliver to central government employees. It should include abstract, externally facing agenda, internal agenda for planning, and some catchy content that we can execute as well, and then any other noteworthy points of actions. So you can see I'm taking these notes and creating something very use case specific, and within a matter of seconds, it creates all of this output for me. Again, something you might spend hours doing post-meeting. Now, it also has the export to Excel button. You can export this to Word as well, where you might collaborate with a marketing team or an execution or project team to carry out these actions. And once again, you can ask follow-up questions, as I have done down below, to say, can you give me a list of activities from a planning perspective so that we hit the planned deadline dates for these webinars? And I've also said, if the dates aren't available, please just say it's not available, for example. So, and you can see that table that's been created here. It said that we were hoping to target this mid-May, and we kind of hit the June, which, given the day job, we're pretty happy with. But the key here, it's accelerated all of that planning activity. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to show you Copilot in Teams, as you can see the button, and I'll paste a similar prompt just to show you how you can generate it on existing meetings, provided they've been transcribed. So same prompt once again, and I've just put the name of the event. And given the nature of how large language models work, they review and generate content in real time. So you can see here that the webinar content and abstract that's generated here is slightly different because it is generating it based on the content in real time. And you can see that it puts out the same content based on what I've asked for with a slightly different structure. This also highlights sometimes the accuracy of Copilot and agent LLMs in general can vary. So be sure to review this content. And you can also see the event that we had cited below, which I can go into. Now, let's move forward and look at the messaging angle in terms of day-to-day work management. I've got a lot of chats here. I need to get a quick summary of what I've been mentioned on. So once again, I can create a prompt to say, summarize all of my team messages from the last workday, and I can say how I'd like to consume this information. And I've given it a list of columns that I would like to see. Once again, I've put another piece to the prompt to say, this is for a public webinar, please redact customer information. So you can guide Copilot into, answering in the way you prefer it to. Now it's going to look at all my messages and create a handy table, again, within a matter of seconds, to give me a summary of the type of message, the topic, the description, and any actions as well, which is the column on the side. So as a user who's looking to accelerate productivity, I don't need to go through each chat. I can just look at this table and look at each item and then go and handle that particular chat message accordingly. Interestingly, this feature is also available within a chat with a colleague or a group chat. So if you miss messages over a day, you can press the Copilot button and say, catch me up, as we did in the meeting, and it gives you a quick summary of the conversation. Cool. I'm going to pass over to Howard once again.
Thank you very much. So, as we have seen, there's quite a lot of really good functionality that you can do with Copilot. And just to quickly show you a couple more applications where you will see Copilot and where to find it. You will find it also in Microsoft Word, again on the Pro license side. In Word, it can generate and refine content, summarize documents, adjust the style and tone of your writing. For example, if you wanted to make a report or a policy brief, you can ask for a body of text to be converted or formatted into bullet points. Copilot can do that really easy for you in quite quickly as well. And you will find the Copilot kind of button or the interaction area on the top right of the home tab, and you will also find it in a similar place when you go onto Excel as well. In Excel, Copilot can help you analyze data, create reports, manage your tasks more efficiently. It can actually help you with formula suggestions and even scenario modeling as well. So it's like having a data analyst at your fingertips. And again, it can be found in a familiar place, which is on the Home tab on the top right. So what I'm going to do now is provide you with some hints and tips, and there's a couple of hints and tips which we feel is really important for when you get started with Copilot. So you may have heard the word prompt being mentioned a few times. Prompting in Copilot, in the Copilot space, is when you basically give Copilot instructions that helps them guide to perform AI specific tasks like generate content or provide insights based on the given content. So essentially that sounds like a lot of kind of Copilot jargon. So I asked Copilot to make that explanation a bit more fun, and it said a prompt in Copilot is your magic wand to command the AI and make your workday sparkle. So if you want to make your workday sparkle, interact with Copilot and use his first hint, which is just to remember to use your conversational voice. You may have seen the way that the prompts have been added into Copilot. It's not keyword based, it's more natural. So you don't have to worry about your phrasing or maybe even some incorrect spellings when asking Copilot for help. It will overlook these things using AI to process the natural language, and it will interpret the context and the intent, and it will give a really speedy response and action your request as well. So it's different from when you're using Google, for example, where they pick on keywords, and if they are spelled incorrectly, the search engine will not overlook them and it will bring results based on that search entry. You can be more natural and fluid with Copilot. The second hint that we have here is the GCSE prompt framework. So a really nice, easy acronym for you to remember that will provide you a bit more kind of structure in your prompting when you are speaking with Copilot. So it's broken down into G for goals, C for context, S for specifics, and E for examples. And it basically enhances the quality of your interactions with Copilot. Again, referring to some of the demos that has been shown already by Jason, he uses this structure as well. You may even use this structure quite naturally, but one of the prompts he mentioned earlier was when we were creating planning for this particular meeting. He set the goals by essentially asking Copilot to help to create content and plan the meeting that we are going to have today. He set the context by saying that the webinar will need to be delivered to government employees, and he added specifics regarding providing a catchy title and even creating a brief that is aimed at external colleagues, and put that in a bullet point format as well. So you can layer up your prompts when you are trying to speak with Copilot. So on a couple of those hints, we're going to go back over to Jason for the last set of demos. Jason.
Cool. Thanks, Howard. So what I'd like to show here is Copilot in OneDrive. And the reason why is, given our audience today, I expect there'll be a lot of scenarios where you need to do a bit of web research, look at content online, look at reports, digest them and summarize them, just as Howard's mentioned. And I want to show you how you can use OneDrive Word and Web to achieve this and ultimately make you more productive and focus on the things that matter. So on here, I've got my OneDrive app open. I've downloaded a couple of GDS reports, one, the AI playbook for UK government and the M365 experiment, and put them into my OneDrive. Now, when I select one of these or two of these documents, it will give me a Copilot button in the command bar. So you can see that in the upper left corner there. When I click this, it gives me a couple of options to say summarize, compare, or ask a question. Now you got to remember, each of these documents is about 20 pages long. I could read it all, or I can ask Copilot to give me that summary, and then I can go into the specific area that I care about and ask more detailed questions. So let me click on that summarize button, and again, within a matter of seconds, it's reviewing the content, summarizing it into key relevant points, and then producing an output ready for me to read and digest. And you can see here it's grouped by the document it's summarizing. So the findings report, which has different bullet points around time saving, user feedback, adoption rate. So I really quickly get an understanding of the content. And then the AI playbook, which looks at principles, building AI solutions, and case studies. So it tells me it's slightly more technical in nature. And you saw I press the ask a question button to then do a bit more of a Q&A. And once again, we've got some pre-canned prompts to help me with my questioning journey. But in this case, I might have a question around how do I implement this within my organization and make sure it's responsible, and it will look through the content and provide an answer. The key here is that within the context of OneDrive, it is tightly grounded in those two files, so it doesn't go out into the web to provide those kind of responses because it's the type of scenario and the type of Copilot you're interacting with. So once again, you can see that summary generated within a matter of seconds. So you can imagine me having to spend probably a couple of hours reading through these documents to assimilate this information, or have it within seconds. Now, let's move over to Word, where we need to now draft some sort of internal communication. As you might see this in a scenario where there's a FOI request or a correspondence officer, or your technology head or a DDAT role who needs to issue some guidance to your department around its usage. We've got Copilot front and center in Word, some pre-canned prompts around based on files, or produce a summary, the search bar, or the Copilot button in the upper right corner. When I press this open, it opens the panel and gives me a few more additional actions I can perform. Once again, pre-canned prompts along with prompt categories around attaching files, adding images, asking agents, etc. Howard mentioned using your voice. You can literally press the mic button and use your voice to ask a question as well. So let's move on to crafting something. Let me start by adding those two PDF documents that we saw earlier in my OneDrive. Just by pressing slash, I can pull them into the context, and then I can start putting out a prompt around what I want this content to look like, and how do I want the shape to be as well. So I'm going to paste in a draft to say it's internal guidance. I wanted to use the internal documentation and what I wanted to include. Now I can start adding additional prompt components to focus in on what I want it to generate. So I'm going to start by setting the context as to who you want this to be written as. So I want to assume it to assume the role of a head of a DDAT role and write it in that context. I also want it to be professional because it's for an internal staffing document. And let's say I'm a nationwide organization who needs to cater for English and Welsh languages, generated in 2 sets of responses. And again, in a matter of seconds, it's going to read through this content and create a first pass draft. Again, the key here is that Copilot is meant to be a collaborator to help you accelerate your day-to-day work. So while it creates this initial content, you can always go in and start tailoring it to reduce the time spent. Personally, when I've had to create documents like this, which might take days, I create my initial draft and then constantly iterate over the content and prompt it again and again to end up with my target outcome. Now you can see it's also generated a Welsh language copy as well. Again, in a matter of seconds. That's the key thing here we've got to remember, is that it's near instantaneous. Once it's ready, I can keep it and or make additional prompts to change the tone at a document level. Now, typically what I like to do is I like to keep this content and add it in, but then I may want to change specific paragraphs. So there's the Copilot button that I can click, and I can say, let's change this to a visual table instead. And within a couple of clicks, I can change the shape of this data from bullet points to tables. Typically, you might spend ages doing this. This is accelerating it to mere seconds in this particular instance. Now, let's move over from Word and go into a web research scenario. Now, there we go. Now, once again, I mentioned this earlier, that in a web research scenario, you might want to look at what have houses done, or planning applications, or correspondence, or FY, where you're looking for information publicly available to bring into a document. This is typically web research type activities. Now I'm going to show you how you can use Copilot in Microsoft Edge to do this web research to really accelerate your workflow. Now I've started here with the same M365 experiment document on the side, and before I go into doing my research, I might have a document open and I want to summarize what's on my screen. Now I've opened the Copilot panel and I've now moved it over to the web option in this instance as opposed to the work, and I can just ask the question, what's on my screen? Now this prompt works for anything that is available on the current screen. Again, because this is Copilot doing it in real time, the success can vary, but I would encourage you to try and see what it can do. I've seen it work on PDFs, websites, YouTube videos, and it just summarizes it what's being shown on screen here. Now you can see I've put in my simple prompt and it's created a quick summary, much like the one I showed you in OneDrive. Now let's turn tails and move into a typical research scenario. And let's assume the role of perhaps a policy officer, let's say, and you're looking at, or an economist, shall we say, you're looking for the latest OBR report. And instead of going out into the web to find that particular link, I can just ask Copilot to say, is there a latest OBR report? And Copilot will go do the web research for me and find the right document and pull it into the context of our conversation. So there you go. And you can see that now in this case, it's slightly inaccurate because it's showing October 2024. This is the Copilot accuracy piece I mentioned, but it does correct itself, and you'll see that in a second. Now, let's move on and say, let's use one of these prompts that are at the bottom of the screen. And I say, what are the main forecasts in the report? So again, it's sticking to October 2025, but now I'm going to ask it to say, how about you compare this to a previous report? Now, the key here is that the OBR reports are about 180 pages long each. So you can imagine that it's summarizing all of this information and bringing that into a summarized context here. So you can see it's created a set of bullet points around how things are changing from October 2025 to 2024. Now, I've also asked it to provide a visual comparison. Now, it takes this information that's in a bullet point format, executes a task to sort of convert this into manageable data, and then create a chart off the back of this as well. And I'd just like to pause here for a moment just to sort of understand the implications of what this has just done. Now, typically, if you're reading a report such as this, you might spend hours, if not days, reviewing content meticulously. You will spend another few days pulling information out into an Excel to create a table and a structure, and then start working out what you want to include, what kind of chart you want to include, and start creating all of that content manually. And in this instance, Copilot has created that in a matter of seconds. So again, it's a massive accelerator to day-to-day productivity. And in my example here, I've picked sort of economic forecast, but you can choose your scenario where you're looking at content and apply there to see how it might surface some of this data for you. Now, let's take it one step further. I've looked at 2 web sources, and let's pull in a third web source into the equation. So I live in Hillingdon Council, so I want to know, how does this impact, my council services? So I've said, I live in Hillingdon Council. Can you find a financial report and cross-reference this with the OBR report? So it's doing several steps here. It's going out, looking for the Hillingdon website and any financial reports. It's pulling that data into the context, and it's creating a summary based on my previous request, maintaining the context as well. And now I'm just asking it to reformat this into a slightly different structure to work for my style of data or information consumption. Also, it creates a little CSV file if I want to export it. So once again, a massive productivity enhancer on day-to-day activities. Cool. So we're going to wrap up now and talk about the importance of security in all that we've seen today. And it is very important when you're working with organizational data that you don't want spread out in the public internet. And when you use Copilot, whether it's in your work or your web context, the key here is that if it's enabled by your organization, you will see that little green check mark that shows that it is got at least a minimum level of security protection, as Howard showed in the comparison earlier. Files that you upload there are not used to train the model, which means that you might inadvertently share something externally. So it is within your organization's sphere of security. Also, how you share information becomes crucial here. Now, think of a scenario where someone's running for doing a charity mountain climb, and they share a document to the entire organization around this. Then when somebody asks about what are our charity initiatives, it might bring that document into context, because Copilot is like a bit of a crawler, if you will, to find all of your organizational information. So when you share things, and if it's shared with everybody, don't be surprised if it comes into somebody else's prompt. So I would say share consciously, whether you want to keep it open or with specific individuals, to make sure that data security within your organization is maintained. As we've seen through a couple of demos today, these large language models are trained on historic data, so they are subject to to bias, and they may not produce the most accurate content at times as well. So it is important that you review this content and make sure that you review it for your particular scenario to make sure that it isn't biased or it isn't inaccurate. And the key here is that you are ultimately in control. It's producing content, but you decide whether or not you use it or you bin it. And we've seen that a few times. And I've got some useful sort of guidance in terms of how you can get started around using Copilot in your day-to-day work. And the first and foremost thing I would call out is ask yourself the question when you're doing a particular activity is, could this task be accelerated using Copilot? And this might be just asking a question into Copilot to say, can you do this? How would you do it? And the more you practice this, it'll improve your prompting capability, and it'll also let you identify where you might have productivity gains as well. From a meeting perspective, when you attend them, I would say make sure you turn Copilot on for one, and make sure you're deliberate in your meeting in terms of how you structure meetings, how you make statements and summaries and things like that. That just makes Copilot's job easier when it comes to producing the content to accelerate your downstream productivity. In both instances, you need to ask Copilot to do things. So prompting is crucial here. And I would say experiment, experiment, experiment. So try something, ask it a question, learn what it does, add qualifiers, improve your prompts, and then repeat the cycle again. And if you come up with something that works, I do this internally as well, share those use cases and prompts with your colleagues, because it's not just about saving your time, it's about saving time for everyone in the organization. Back over to you, Howard.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you. So now we have seen the basics on kind of how to get started and access Copilot. What we have done, we have rounded up a few resources for you to peruse through. So what you can do is go on to or scan any of these, and these will links to blogs, videos, guides that are free and publicly available for you to access. So this will support your learning that you have gone through today. So if you would like to pause the recording here, you can scan these resources if you want to. The next slide is regarding about joining us on our next webinar, where we will dive deeper into how to bring Copilot to life in your organization. So if you want more custom tutorials, learning-based webinars, then come and join us on our second one in the series, where we give you more in-depth understanding of how Copilot works and how to work with Copilot. This one will be on the 8th of July, and it will focus on better writing prompts. So as you saw earlier, we did highlight a couple of tips that will help us on prompts, but this is a whole course dedicated to that. And finally, if it's not just for personal adoption, if you think your organization could benefit from a more structured kind of team-based or organizational approach to Copilot in change, learning and adoption, then we have you sorted here. We've got a couple of example packages that you can see here. we can put packages like this together, or if we can obviously make them flexible to support your organization as well. And essentially it's to help everyone on their Copilot journey and to unlock its productivity across the whole organization. So again, pause here if you wanted to have an extended look at these packages. And now we're going to go on to the question and answer session, and this is going to be based on some of the questions that were sent to us before the session. So I'm going to go through a couple of these. I'm going to ask Jason, and he's going to kindly answer them for you. So the first question is, can Copilot scan documents and answer questions on the contents of the document?
Yes, absolutely. We've seen it in a few instances across Teams, OneDrive, Word, and Web. So wherever you are, you can pull in a document into context and ask questions about it.
Perfect, thank you. How is the information kept secure?
So as you showed earlier, Howard, whether you have the free or the paid version of Copilot, you have at least some level of organization data protection. The key here is that anything you put in is not used to train the model, and by extension might respond with that content to somebody else. With the free version, you get basic commercial data protection, and with the with the work version that's paid for, all of your work content that you put in is still kept secure and within your organization bubble. You can also see the little green shield mark to show you more information about the data security policies that Microsoft applies on Copilot. However, I do want to stress that your own organization might have its own information security policies around how and when Copilot can be used. So be sure to adhere to them as well, because you might have a corporate policy that says that anything that is confidential or highly sensitive cannot be used in Copilot. So you would need to respect that accordingly.
Perfect, thank you. Next question is, how easy or difficult is it to use the software?
Well, I hope from today's session it shown that's incredibly easy. The only training you need is how to type. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's about it. I think also one of the hints that Jason mentioned earlier is just to ask Copilot. So if you are needing any help regarding the navigation, you can simply ask Copilot questions and it will obviously provide you with the help that you need as well. Next question is, what's different about Copilot to ChatGPT?
Good one. So they're both effectively chatbots based on large language models. The key difference here is that ChatGPT is a commercial third-party solution. It doesn't have the same data security policies, even in the paid version, as M365 Copilot. So that's probably the key main difference there. There's other functional differences as well, but the key thing to remember is that for any work-related context, Copilot should be your go-to as opposed to ChatGPT.
Perfect, thank you. Next question we've kind of covered slightly, but can I rely on Copilot in a high security setting?
If there's already organizational data protection from M365 Copilot, and if your organization's information security policy says you can do so, then yes. But if it says no, then please do not.
Thank you. Penultimate question is, for an organization implementing Copilot 365, what is a typical lead time before the first group of people start to use it?
So once you purchase the licenses and enable it for individuals, they're automatically made available. So really the only timeline is acquiring the licenses and applying it to people, and that will depend on your internal IT team's turnaround time and your organization's policy on that front. There is no actual deployment for us to really do. So once it's enabled, you can start asking your questions.
Perfect, thank you. And lastly, how can Copilot help me more in my job role than the free version?
Well, the paid version obviously has access to your work context and your work files to make it more contextual. I would say that if you're curious about how we can, you can ask it. As you know, I asked in the earlier demo, I said, what can you do to help me in my role as a solution architect? And you could ask the same, what can you do to help me in my role as a head of technology or a caseworker or a correspondence manager? And it will give you ideas that should hopefully, unlock more sort of creativity to boost your productivity, for lack of a better term.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So finally, this is our contact details if you ever need to get in touch with us. We really do appreciate the feedback and comments that you may have, so please send them our way. We will obviously look forward to seeing you on the next webinar as well, and we really hope this session has fueled your interest in Copilot and what it can do for you. So everyone take care, and I hope you have a great week. Thank you.
Bye all.